releasing more spores, infecting more ants, releasing more spores, infecting more ants, infecting more ants, more ants.
This is the parasitic world of Sam Harris.
I don't think the story of all of our mayhem and unnecessary suffering has much to do with bad people doing bad things. I think for the most part it's good people, or at least normal people, under the influence of bad ideas.
Sam Harris has just released one of the most ironic and self-refuting videos of all time. And in this video, we're going to show you why. Like a parasitic creature living off the host, his particular brand of atheism survives only by leeching off the source while simultaneously rejecting that source. Let's get into it.
It's been widely thought that we have something like a crisis of meaning, especially in the developed world at this point.
The materialism, the atheism that he has pushed out for so long has brought about this crisis of meaning. Yes, there is a crisis of meaning. Of course there is. You've brainwashed an entire generation by telling them everything is a cosmic accident, love is just chemicals, we don't have souls, there is no God, there is no morality, there is no meaning, and now you're complaining about the impact of that brainwash? Now you're complaining about the fact that there's a crisis of meaning?
There's a sense that culture has atomized, right? We're all kind of on our own with our phones and laptops and our digital media experiences. No one knows what everyone else is seeing on some level. And we spend so much time thinking about and reacting to the digital lives we and others have created that there has been this shattering effect of culture. So I think we need a truly open-ended conversation with now 8 billion strangers. And what makes that hard to do increasingly is a level of political fragmentation and extremism and partisanship born of our engagement with these new technologies, born of the fact that we just simply can't agree about who is lying most of the time, right? And who is misinformed, who is in possession of only half the story.
Now I want to say I agree with his point here. It's a true conclusion. It's just the premise that I don't understand on his worldview. I don't see how he gets here other than that way being a parasitic way. He desires universal truth and complains about our inability to agree on it, entirely missing how this very longing reflects the failure of relativistic ethics and atheistic subjectivism. You cannot have your cake, Mr. Harris. You have already eaten it.
I'm increasingly concerned that something like half of us can't quite agree that we have a stake in the maintenance of a global civilization. We're witnessing a fairly stark zero-sum contest between those of us who want to maintain open societies and anything like democracy and capitalism as we've come to understand them, and those who increasingly want to build closed ones.
Harris's dichotomy here assumes that secular liberalism is inherently superior, yet much of what he values, namely freedom, dignity, human rights, originated within a Judeo-Christian worldview. Again, by rejecting the tree but wanting the fruit, we can see this parasitic effect in play and how his position undermines itself.
The thing to recognize is that we live in perpetual choice between conversation and violence. Those are really the two alternatives. When we have to get people in line, when people have to cooperate, well then we've got persuasion or coercion. The importance of conversation can't possibly be exaggerated because it is the bulwark against perpetual violence. It's the bulwark against murder. It's the bulwark against war. It's the only thing keeping those things out of our daily experience.
This part's interesting because Harris acknowledges the need for persuasion over coercion, but ignores how atheism lacks a moral basis to reject violence outright. If we are mere products of blind evolution, why would truth or conversation even really matter other than for some merely utilitarian purpose? And again, ironically, the Christianity that he has famously rejected offers such a solution, a unique call to peace that is rooted in intrinsic value of every human being given that we are, on the Christian worldview, created in the image of God himself. So sacrificial love, considering others above oneself, these types of things make sense in a Christian paradigm. They don't really make sense in Harris's paradigm.
The challenge is always how to get strangers to cooperate. I don't think the story of all of our mayhem and unnecessary suffering has much to do with bad people doing bad things. I think for the most part, it's good people, or at least normal people, under the influence of bad ideas.
The idea of cooperation presupposes shared goals and values. Christianity provides these through the great commandment of loving God and loving neighbor, while atheism, again, struggles to really justify cooperation without invoking mere evolutionary self-interest. Harris critiques bad ideas, yet fails to recognize atheism's role in propagating harmful ideologies in the 20th century alone. Just to pick on the 20th century, for example, Stalinism is kind of jumping off the page. And if you don't think that Stalinism is atheistic, then please go read some Stalin. This video is sponsored by PDS Debt. Do you have debt? I promise this is going somewhere. Hang in there. If you do, you know how overwhelming it can be. Credit card debt, personal loans, medical bills. Debt can feel so crippling when you don't know how to tackle it. I've been there myself. It's hard to face, and even harder when it feels like no matter how much you pay, the balances aren't moving down. That's why I want to share with you PDS Debt today. PDS Debt offers customized solutions for anyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt. Whether you've been dealing with bad credit, fair credit, or even no credit score at all, they have options for you. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't budging, PDS has solutions that can help. Right now, they're offering a free debt analysis that takes literally 30 seconds to complete. 30 seconds could be the start of your journey toward financial freedom. It's a new year, a great time to make a change and take control of your finances. Don't let debt crush you any longer. Make this the year you take control of your debt. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/daily dose of wisdom. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/daily dose of wisdom. pdsdebt.com/daily dose of wisdom. Now back to the video.
If your beliefs are not falsifiable, if there's no scenario that could convince you that your most cherished opinions are in error, well then that's proof that you didn't get them by being in contact with reality.
Now, interestingly, this claim assumes materialism is the sole arbiter of reality. Dismissing metaphysical truths like love, justice, and meaning, Christianity asserts a coherent worldview where both material and spiritual realities coexist and inform each other. Again, Harris wants so badly to have it both ways here. He wants so badly to get all of the upside of Christianity while rejecting Christianity and then taking none of the baggage associated with atheism and the baggage that he himself has created. I can't get over this.
If most of human misery and inequality and conflict and violence is a matter of the stories that people are telling themselves, then you see that virtually all of human suffering and chaos is just tissue thin. I mean, it's a bad dream.
I find calling suffering a bad dream to be dismissive and contradictory to the lived experience of literally billions of people across this planet. Christianity, alternatively, takes seriously suffering, offers hope to suffering, offers redemption through Christ's suffering on the cross. In other words, if the gospel is actually true, then that means that Christ was willing to suffer for us. And that also means that God clearly cares for us, so much so that he's willing to go to these great lengths for our good. I think this is something that cannot be overstated.
One basis for hope is there's almost no problem human ingenuity can't solve in the end. This is a point that the physicist David Deutsch made recently, which I find compelling. Unless there's some law of physics that rules it out, any change in the universe that is possible in the presence of sufficient knowledge.
This boundless optimism in human capability contradicts the observable moral failings of humanity in recorded history. Christianity teaches that knowledge alone cannot solve our deepest problems, and only the transformation that comes through grace, through God's grace, can truly address the human condition. The Bible clearly, repeatedly teaches the idea that we've all fallen short of the glory of God, that we're all equally in need of God, that the only real solution to the problem of evil out there in the world as an idea, but also right in the center of each and every human heart, the only solution to that problem of evil is in fact God's solution, which is the cross, the great equalizing atoning reality at the center of history. And again, Harris wants it without accepting the root of where it came from. He wants the fruit, but he hates the root. You'll notice this theme throughout the video.
All of that has been a matter of getting rid of dogma and having an open-ended and intellectually honest conversation based on facts and arguments. Really, the sky is the limit in terms of how good we can make human life on the basis of our understanding how the world works.
Again here, very ironic, Harris's rejection of dogma is itself a dogma. His faith in secular rationality is no less a belief system than the Christianity that he hates. Yet it lacks the explanatory power for, again, the source of morality, the transcendence of purpose, or any ultimate meaning. He wants so badly to pull these things out of thin air, to manifest them through his own harmonious internal vibration derived from meditation. But what are you meditating on? What are you meditating with? None of it adds up. None of it makes sense.
How fearful do I want to be? How impatient do I want to be? How angry do I want to be right now? All of our failures of compassion are failures of mutual understanding.
Obviously, Christians agree with the idea that compassion is vital, but we also understand the fact that compassion is rooted in an understanding that we as individuals and our fellow men are made in the image of God, that we have a real value that is ontologically derived from our connection with God, that we're very different from a rock, a tree, an animal, or anything else at any other point in creation. That's where human rights come from. It's the idea that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty. This is the understanding that even brought about the formation of the civics that our country, if you're an American, run on, okay? It is that the rights are given to us by God.
Your mind is all you have, really. Your mind is the basis of your experience in each moment. And therefore it makes sense to train it. It makes sense to understand it. It makes sense to pay attention to it directly.
This reductionism also erodes the intrinsic dignity that Harris values, but he somehow cannot see plainly. His position is self-refuting. So if you guys enjoyed this type of content, this type of commentary, you might also like the Daily Dose of Wisdom podcast. There's a lot of guest experts that I've had on there recently that have been really awesome PhD type folks who I just love learning from, listening to, and questioning. That's the Daily Dose of Wisdom podcast. The link below is to Spotify and Apple, depending on your preference there. Also, follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Check out my website, dailydoseofwisdom.com, for details on the Wisdom Society. It's a growing community of believers from around the world. We're trying to think together. We're trying to serve people together. We're reading through books together. We're sharing ideas together. We're praying for each other. We're trying our best to learn from the church at large in this really cool online community. So that's the Wisdom Society. You can check that out, like I said, at dailydoseofwisdom.com. And also on the website, there's merch, and there's a lot of other things there. I'll leave it short for the rest of this video, but thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. And if anybody has any contact with Sam Harris, please let him know. I'd love to talk to him. I really would. I know this video has some little bit of jabs here and there, but I really do just wonder if through conversation he could see the extreme self-refuting nature of his worldview, or I would at least like to ask him these types of questions. So I extend that invitation as well in case there happens to be a Hail Mary pass that leads to some touchdown in that capacity. Thanks again, folks. See you in the next one. Bye.